stakeholders. So the technologies that we are using are pretty standard across the board. So within FT, we have different projects. And most of the projects that are doing browser-based automation are using the same technology like Selenium Java client libraries. We are using TestNG to drive these tests. And we have a Selenium grid setup, which is using 1.0.8 that runs our overnight tests. We have Jenkins and Antil Pro. Most of you will be familiar with Jenkins, but Antil Pro is a similar kind of a tool, which is not open source, it is commercial. We use it for our continuous integration as well as our release management. For the new projects, we are encouraging them to start using WebDriver and Selenium too. We have a team that is using Water WebDriver, Ruby-based. Basically, the team was comfortable in using Ruby. That's why we encourage them to use, Water WebDriver. We use ReportNG to report the TestNG-based test results. And I will show you how we are showing those results. And I'm glad that Simon is not here because we are using Maven for our tests. So in terms of numbers, we have around more than 2,000 Selenium tests that we run across different pre-production environments. So in terms of pre-production environments, we have CI, QA, and test, which is, in terms of test is our staging environment, which is controlled and a mirror of our production environment. And we have limited number of tests, which we call them service availability tests that we run live as well. And some of those are Selenium-based tests, and some of those are standard Apache HTTP client tests that we use to run, against different Apaches and Tomcats to make sure that everything is up. So what we have seen based on our experience, when the test fails, we have been asked these kind of questions, over and over again. When it started failing, or does it fail consistently in any environment, or it fails in a particular environment, or does it fail for the same reason? Because UI tests, by its definition, is slow. And in an ideal situation, when you run your tests, it should be 100% pass rate. But in the real world, it does not happen. You have failures which can be of any reason. We work with third parties, we work with legacy systems, we work with databases that are not sometime there, we work with Selenium Grid. Although Selenium Grid is great, but there are some instances where the tests are not able to find the sessions from the Selenium, or the Selenium server itself is down, these kind of reasons. So how we started, basically, this is our first summary. This is our first ever test report. So 4 years ago, we decided that we are going to use Selenium with TestNG. So at that time, it was Selenium 1.0. We decided that we are going to use page object pattern, so the code maintainability will be there, code reusability will be there. And we started developing our tests sprint by sprint basis. Soon we realized that how we are going to communicate these test results, and what format we are going to communicate these test results, and what will be the audience for these test results. So initially we decided that for every overnight test run, there will be a report which will be a summary of how many tests failed, how many tests passed, which everyone can quickly scan through, and the relevant person can log into the CI environment or whatever the mechanism is to run those tests and see the reports. So you can see from these tests that we are logging in the parsing percentage, how many tests skipped, how many passed, how many failed, and what was the total execution time. But then we got some developers got together and they said that it's not enough. And of course, nothing is never enough for our stakeholders. So they said that these numbers do not mean anything because these are just numbers. They cannot correlate this to anything. So what we decided to do is send an email with, you can see from there, it's an HTML file that is basically a standard TestNG report that shows the results of all the tests. And these stats are still there. So these were the stats that were there on the previous slide. So if someone wants to see the stack traces and these kind of things from the test results, they can see by the HTML file. And if the managers or the Scrum Master want to quickly scan what the build is looking like after the overnight run, they can just open up that file. But then again, we ran into some issues. Most of our contractors were using Gmail, and whenever we were using Maven Entrant plugin, and when we attach this HTML file, it was not readable. It was, instead of attaching an HTML file, it was showing, I think, rubbish in the report. It was not readable at all. I tried to find an example of what it looked like, but I was not able to do so because it was a very long time ago. Then what we decided, instead of sending an email, send an email with this link. So what people can do is people can click on the link, results will be available on the shared drive. And when they click on the link will be generated again by Maven. There will be a shared network drive, file server, the name of the test itself, and with the time span, so that we have multiple folders in there. You click on the link and you can go to the reports. Then we came to know TestNG listeners. We were using TestNG listeners in a limited capacity for that quick stat kind of a thing. But then we decided to use ReportNG. And this is the ReportNG listener that will generate HTML-based reports. So all of our AHP workflows are publishing these reports for all the tests. But then we decided to log our test results to a database. So we implemented this result listener that will listen to the test results in the real time. So the benefits of doing that was as we are using Maven, and it takes us around 2 to 3 hours to complete the test run. So if we are running tests, then we have to wait for Maven command to complete. So we had to wait for 2 to 3 hours to get any meaningful results. By implementing this TestNG listener, we were getting the test results instantaneously. So for one of our release, what I remember was, before implementing this TestNG listener, our tech lead at that time was logging in directly to the Jenkins box, and he was scanning through the HTML files that are generated for TestNG because we wanted quick feedback to release our FTCMS code base. So this helped a lot in terms of getting real feedback and storing that test results into a database. So the schema of that, we had just one table, so it was very minimal. So we were logging in all this information: host name, test class, method name, parameters that we are passing in, status, which will be either pass, fail, or skip, and stack trace if there is any stack trace. So what the testers can do is testers can log into this database, and relevant to their project, they can run SQL queries and get the results. And if they want to compare for a particular test method, they want to compare or see the history of the test, they can do that. So once we have that, what will be the logical next step? Anyone? So we have the database, we have the test results. What will be the logical next step? The next step we thought will be we can build some maybe web UI on top of it. So instead of doing that, what we did was Chris came up with a tool which is called Quanto. It is an open source tool that is built using Rails and Groovy. So this screenshot is basically for a particular project that we are logging all the test results. So if I go there, so you can see from there, these are different test runs, and you can see the pagination over there as well. So this test run is created based on the time the test is running, total number of tests, how many passed, how many failed, how many skipped, what the success percentage is, analyzed. I will come to analyze later on, duration of the tests, tags, if you are using any tags, basically these are TestNG groups, environment, which environment the particular test is running against, and what these tests are. And you can also, this bar chart also, you you can see the history of different test runs. So how many passed, how many failed. And if you drill down to a particular test run, you will see all those test failures in that particular test run. And what you can do is, if you are using Quanto properly, what you can do is, you can investigate those failures and you can assign different reasons for. The default reasons are either it is a bug, environment, investigation required, or not reproducible, or either it is a test defect. So based on your overnight test run or any test run, once you analyzed these reasons, then you should be confident enough like how many defects your particular test has found. And another interesting feature that we are using in Quanto is grouped output. So if you click on the grouped output, based on all failures, it will group all the failures that are similar. So you can get to your tests that are failing for the same reason. So in this case, you can say that there are 3 test methods which are failing because they did not find the option label coffee. And the summary view is, once you have analyzed all your test methods, again, it will show you how many total tests, passed, failed, success, and in there, it will say that the 13% of the tests were not reproducible, 6% of either test defects, 20% were real defects, and 60% of the tests failed due to environment issues. So these kind of things are helpful to communicate to your stakeholders. Like we have been, in most of the retrospective, we keep on saying that, we have environments which are not reliable, right? But we don't have any evidence or we don't have any proof. So these kind of things can help testers or developers or the team itself to communicate to the stakeholders that we are losing this much time due to either environment issues or if the test is not finding a defect, if this ratio is low than the other things, then there are issues around your test automation. Again, what else you can do is, this view is particularly showing basically the history of this particular test method. So you can see from there that this test started failing on this date, and you can see that no one has analyzed anything, and you can even click on the output over there, and you can see what the stack traces are for different test failures. Then you can quantify if the test is failing for the same reason, or when it started failing, then you can trace that back to whatever the SVN revision is or whatever the code commit is. It is not coming up as it should be. Anyway, so what it says is we are using Quanto, but again, we have limited set of metadata associated to a particular test. So basically what our managers want, what our Scrum Masters want, they want to see the test coverage, right? We are implementing a user story, they want to see how many tests do we have against that particular user story. They want to see who is writing how many tests. What sort of testing methodology we are using. So these kind of things, who the customer is, who the developers are for this particular story. So what we are planning to do is, we are enhancing our listeners, which are again TestNG listeners at the moment. We are introducing custom annotations which are there. So you can tag your tests with these annotations. And we are going to use Splunk for our our test repository. Are people familiar with Splunk, or have they heard of Splunk? So Splunk is another commercial tool that you can use to monitor your live services based on log files. So what it does is, on all of your servers, you have Splunk agent installed, and it is going through all your log files. And you can define basically scripts, or you can define alerts if it finds certain elements in the log file. So these are application log files. If you find certain errors or these kind of error conditions in the log files, it will generate alerts. And we have most of our big screens with these kind of alerts which are coming through from the live system, and it is all real time. So what we are going to do is, on the test machines, we are going to install Splunk agents our tests will log the test results to a Splunk-friendly log format, and we will report test results based on that. And once we have this information, it's still in the, it's not ready to use yet, but we are hoping that our Splunk agent will be ready by next week. So then we will be able to, and these listeners, we have defined listeners for all kind of open source tests frameworks like JUnit, TestNG, Concordian, and Spock. So if within FT, anyone is developing any kind of JUnit, TestNG, Spock, or Concordian tests, they need to define a dependency in their POM file, and their test will be automatically logged to our central server, which will have Splunk agent installed on it, and we will report all this information via Splunk. So the format that what we have done is, we have written a custom web app. So you define the dependency in your POM file, the listener will start listening, and it will post a JSON to our web app. The format of the JSON is test results. It has a framework, so the framework is defining that this particular test or the project is using TestNG. If it is any other framework, it will say JUnit or Spock or Concordian. The test class, start time, end time, scenarios, how many test methods are there, what is the state of each test method. And this format, this file, so each test execution will generate multiple of these JSON files. And Splunk agent then will convert these JSON files to Splunk-friendly format, so the Splunk indexer can forward those files or the log entries to Splunk server, and those will be reported in real time. So this is an example report that we can get from Splunk. So basically Splunk is, you can build your reports. It has a syntax, it has a query format. You specify what is the log file that you are trying to search the data on. So once you specify the file, you have filters on the right side. So it is showing right now that in dev, we have 163 failure, 217 tests passed. In int environment, we had 5 failures, 9 passed. So this is again is not a live report. This is still in beta. Once it is live, we will have more realistic data. And over there, you can see that the test run on Tuesday, May 1st, we ran 200 tests. Again, we ran 160 tests for different project. On 3rd May, we did not have any tests. I think it is 3rd May for some other project. Saturday, we did not have any tests. And again, the metadata that we have defined as custom annotations, you can see those fields are there. So it says that for a particular context is again the same like what framework we are using. Is it JUnit context or is it TestNG context? So if you click on the context, it will show you, it will filter down the results based on whatever you click on there. So you have 21 different interesting fields. So if you want to report or track your test results based on a certain criteria, like you have a program criteria, if you click on the program, it will list all the programs that are going on within FT and that have Selenium-based tests in there. Then you can drill down to further, even to the individual test method and their failure reason for that particular test. So this is my blog post that has a blog. I don't maintain that blog. The last post I written was almost more than 1 year ago. But the first post on that blog is about Quanto and TestNG listener. And on the GitHub repository, I have also open sourced the Quanto TestNG listener. So if you want to use Quanto and TestNG listener, and if you want to contact me for any of these issues, you can contact me on that email. Any questions? Yep.
How do you put on top of all these different technologies? So we've got Quanto.
As we move on, if we find better alternatives, we start adopting those alternatives and getting rid of old technology.